Hello everyone, hope you're having a good weekend. So we're going to be looking at MJ, the ETF, WED, ACB, APH, and Cron here, the major players. So what we had happen is on Thursday, we closed near the high of the day. We had a lot of bull momentum in the sector, looking for some follow through on Friday morning. We certainly knew that the top of the bounce was going to be in for now because we were not looking to change the trend. We're not looking to be heroes on this trade. We were just looking for an oversold bounce for some green to cool off the RSI, and that's exactly what we got. But in terms of the close Thursday, strong in at the high of the day. On Friday, we saw weaker opens and then red days. And the reason for the weaker open, in my opinion, is because Trump put out, retaliation to more Chinese tariffs. The market overall dropped down over 1% that night and then never fully recovered. So there was definitely an impact, in my opinion, in the broader markets on how we opened in Canadian MJ on Friday. So it is something that we do need to be aware of. Global events affect the Canadian MJ sector in ways that you think would not be related at all. But again, these markets are all correlated due to the bots and the algos and the computerized trading in this day and age. And this was an example of that, in my opinion. So again, what the bottom line that I want to drive it home is we're not changing any trends right now. The bears have complete control. And the bounce that we saw was just a short-term oversold bounce. So we bounced on MJ here from 2602 up to 28.25. That's a solid bounce. That's about an 8% bounce or so. And now to change the trend, we need a higher low compared to 2602 and then a higher high breaking the high of this bounce. We have not seen a daily higher low and higher high since back at the start of March. So it's been over a month now, all red. First time seeing 2 green days in a row, but again, these short-term bounces just cool off RSI levels before continuation down. Big red flag for the bulls that will tell us the bears still have absolute full control will be if the recent lows of last week cannot hold this coming week. So the next trade setup potential that there is what we would call a bottom fishing play, and this is for bulls, where if we were to drop back down close to these support levels and maybe get oversold on some of the time frames, perhaps the hourly gets oversold, we'll be looking for a bottom fishing play where we can put our stop loss just below 26 and try and see that higher low form, very low risk, knowing that the stop would be that close by. So that's where we stand. That's the key range, and that's going to be the key range on all of these individual names. WEED on the daily time frame did have a decent buying at the end of the day on Friday, but we have our low of the dump, we have our high of the bounce, and the bulls are trying to form a higher low. So the range right now, 25.35 to 29.05. Very solid bounce over those 2 days, more than 10%. And now the bulls are trying to form the higher low. 26.73, currently a support level that the bulls are trying to hold. So if we look at it on the hourly time frame, we can see our low, high of the bounce, the bulls attempting to form this higher low, but we will need follow through next week to break to a higher high to, again, shift this momentum and to give us bullish follow through, because we cannot give the bulls any benefit of the doubt in this current setup, because again, the trend belongs to the bears. So right now the bulls are swimming upstream in terms of trying to turn things around. It's certainly possible for them to do so, but it's going to take a little while. And news catalysts will obviously help, but I never want to be in a position where I'm relying on news to make my trade work out. So that's why I'm sitting back in all cash and patiently waiting for either a trend change or more oversold bounce opportunities like the one that we saw last week. ACB on the daily time frame, same thing. We're looking at the range of the last couple of days. We got the low of 730, the high of 850, very significant bounce, and now an inside bar on the daily. So if we see a break of 784, we're going to be heading back down. 775 will be the next level. And if we see a bull break of 824, we're going to be looking up at 850 as the high of this bounce. So same thing on the hourly. We have our low, high of the bounce, and here's the bulls trying to establish a higher low. 783 and 784 is currently that support level. We'll see if the bulls can hold that into next week. So the hourly time frame is giving the most clarity, in my opinion, that I would want to be watching on these major names, because if they lose their low that was established here on Friday, then we know the bears, again, are still strong. APH on the daily time frame, same deal. You can see how everybody is correlated here. Some names stronger than others, but overall the general shape of the patterns are the same. And just got rid of APH, so let's bring it back up. So APH, we have our low, high of the bounce, and the bulls are attempting the higher low at 993. So 910, we bounced all the way up to 1092. Again, 18% plus gains. These are significant gains, and opportunity is there. That's why we were looking for the oversold bounce last week, and now we're patiently waiting. So looking at the hourly time frame, same pattern, low, high, trying to form that higher low. It's not game over if we lose the low of Friday, but again, it just affirms that the bears still have a lot of momentum if we do. Again, check the overall market videos that I put out, because if we break the February dump lows on the S&P 500, in my opinion, it absolutely 100% will negatively affect the Canadian MJ sector. Wrapping it up with Cron, a weaker bounce attempt in terms of the follow-through that we saw, but either way, we do still have the same setup. And I'm looking at the low, that's at 657. And then our high of the bounce was actually on Friday at 779. We did get a little bit more follow-through. The hourly setup is a bit different just because we're not confident in any high or low attempt. So our low, high, and right now, 714 trying to hold. And if that level breaks, we're looking back down to the recent lows of last week. So all in all, solid bounce, very solid gains to be had. If you had an opportunity for 10 to 18% on this flip, even if you capture a small portion of that, 3%, 5%, it adds up. So that's my game plan. I'm patiently waiting in cash. I don't have many opportunities to play bearish in Canadian MJ. I used to have shares available to short MJ. That has no longer been the case, as they are probably in high demand. And in terms of playing Canadian options, do not have a broker at this point that allows that. So patiently waiting. Again, I'm fine just waiting for the bullish setups. I got plenty of other things to trade besides Canadian MJ, crypto, and oil, and SPY, and all of that. So it's almost, it's almost to a point where I don't need anything more to trade. Otherwise, I'm going to be on the computer for 12 hours a day, and that's not something that I want to be doing. So patiently waiting. Let's see what the weekly charts look like. Weekly, nice long lower wick on MJ, but it's still not a bullish reversal candlestick. It does show us the bulls did buy some of the dip. But again, no convincing action right now. Key support approaching on ACB, 711 and 730. That's a key level to hold. APH already broke below it on the weekly time frame. WEED is nowhere near breaking it. So again, you can look at the weekly time frame and get a strong sense of where we stand. With WEED the strongest, ACB is in the middle. APH is the weakest, dumping well below that level. And let's look at Cron's level, still holding it as well. So Cron and ACB are fairly similar with where they stand on their weekly charts. So we have equilibrium patterns to be watching on the weekly. And guess what SPY is doing? SPY and the S&P 500 are trying to form an equilibrium on the weekly time frame. So high, look at our low. Our low was February, early February, the low of the February dump. Lower high, trying for the higher low. We compare it to WEED. Look at the low, same low, okay? So it's not a coincidence that the low of the dump on SPY is the low of all these Canadian MJ names that are important to hold on the weekly time frame, which is why I keep talking about correlations. Some people like to say there's no correlations with the S&P 500, and considering I watch Canadian MJ and I watch the S&P 500 trade on the 5-minute time frame, literally 5 days a week, literally for 9 hours, 8 hours a day, for me to hear that is just, I just shake my head because it's so very blatantly clear to me. I watch it every single day to some degree. So equilibrium patterns on the weekly, high, low, lower, high, and we're trying to form the higher low. It's an equilibrium pattern set up for WEED, ACB, and Cron. APH is the only one that does not have that setup. So much more favorable weekly charts for these three. APH is the clear lead bear, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And it's worth noting, if you're looking longer term, these charts are still just fine on this weekly time frame. And if it were to continue to play out like this, I would expect to stay in this weekly equilibrium pattern for another month on WEED and Canadian MJ, unless we get some really bad market news, which is entirely possible these days. There's a lot of headline risk. But overall, I would expect a break. Let's see, we're in early April. I would expect a break as we're heading into June, heading into the end of May, second half of May, heading into June, getting ready for this final vote. So again, weekly equilibrium patterns. If you're looking longer term, this is the pattern to be looking at. Appreciate you watching. We'll continue to check back in. Have a great weekend.